Never before have I turned on you. You look so good to me. You be the eyes that can cut me in two, and I just can't let you be. Well, it's a free for all and a height of sin. You can bet your life. Stakes are high, and so am I. Till me yet tonight, yeah, yeah.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Southern States Wrestling Classics. Your host here, Beau James. Some people like to call me the King of Kingsport. And today we're going to take a look at someone that was very special to this part of the country, very special to Southern States Wrestling in the early days here 20 plus years ago. A man that headlined cards in this part of the country for 3 decades. And I'm talking about Archie the Mongolian Stomper Goldie, who had a career in Canada before he ever got here to the hills of East Tennessee. He was a special kind of athlete, having a short-lived career in the Canadian Football League and then a professional wrestling career that spanned over 50 years. He started wrestling under the tutelage of Stu Hart, graduating from the dungeon there in the Hart House in the legendary Calgary Stampede area. After getting his feet warm in the profession, Stu sent him to Kansas City, where Bob Geigel dubbed him and gave him the name, the Mongolian Stomper. It wasn't long after becoming the Mongolian Stomper that he was winning titles and headlining cards across the Midwest. He was a key figure of the success of the Central States area in the early 1960s. Then he began to travel the world, going to Japan, Australia, back to the United States, traveling to different areas across the country, building up a name, building the legend of the Mongolian Stomper. He first came to Tennessee in 1975 under the Gulas Welch banner of the NWA office out of Nashville, Tennessee, and it didn't take long before he won gold here, the Southern Heavyweight Champion, and became involved in a blood feud with another young guy coming up making a name for himself in Bullet Bob Armstrong. These two men went on to be not only Tennessee but Southeastern legends. Let's go back to 1975 and take a little look at the Mongolian Stomper and Bob Armstrong's feud for the Southern Heavyweight title.
We rejoin action in what has been two superbly conditioned athletes going after the NWA Southern Heavyweight Championship. The Mongolian Stomper, Temujin, currently with Bob Armstrong trapped in that turnbuckle with a choke referee, Tommy Marlin, calling for the break. But Temujin does not heed the call. Bob Armstrong back with a choke of his own. Some kind of match, as we mentioned in the opening. Bob Armstrong, the champion, really going after the Mongolian Stomper, the man he won the title from not more than a week ago. Right now, Bob Armstrong, to the delight of the fairgrounds people, really tearing into the big guy. 1, 2, the count reaches 2, and the Mongolian Stomper able to kick out. Al Green on the outside, a second to the big Stomper tonight, has not yet been a factor in the match. On the outside, Green issuing encouragement to the Stomper and having a few words with Armstrong. Certainly no love lost there. Bob Armstrong, 236-pounder from Atlanta, coming off those ropes, a thundering blow into the back of the back area of the Stomper. And again, the count reaches 2. The Stomper able to kick out and goes for the eyes of Armstrong. One of the more favorite tactics of the Stomper, going to the opponent's eyes, as you've just seen him, and begins kicking Armstrong. Some kind of match. At stake, the NWA Southern Heavyweight Championship, currently held by Bob Armstrong, but the Stomper now gaining momentum with each kick. You can hear the roar of the crowd calling for Armstrong to come back. Armstrong up on his feet, taking everything the Stomper has to offer. Bob Armstrong. Bob Armstrong, a master at karate and judo, going after the Stomper in that corner. Bob Armstrong, watch this guy go to work on the Stomper. Tremendous athlete. Temujin, draped across those ropes, may be in trouble. Armstrong flips him over and goes to work. on those nerves in the back of the neck. Armstrong applying quite a bit of pressure as the attack point being the nerve ends and the neck. Referee Tommy Marlin asking the big Stomper about it. But this guy, as I've mentioned several times, has great recuperative powers. And he can withstand quite a bit of pain. If we've seen him in the past do just this. Coming up off of his feet, the Stomper slamming into the midsection of Armstrong and flips him over. These two guys can really go after it. Armstrong off those ropes, tripped up by Al Green. 1, 2. Bob Armstrong able to kick out of it, as it appeared he may have had the match lost. Coming off those ropes, Al Green misses and hits the Stomper with that shoe. 1, 2, 3. That'll do it. Bob Armstrong a winner tonight. Is Al Green missing him with that boot and hitting the Stomper with that boot. Some kind of change of events here. Armstrong, who outsmarted the Stomper and Al Green, ducks away from the intended boot and catches the Stomper right in the middle of the head. And now Al Green in the middle of the ring with the defeated Mongolian Stomper. Al Green a second tonight, used that boot, and it wound up hurting him. Now the Stomper going after Al Green. Watch this. Green getting out of that ring.
There you saw just some of the legendary feud between the Mongolian Stomper and Bullet Bob Armstrong for the Southern title in 1975. In 1976, the Stomper found himself involved with another man that would go on to have a legendary status here in Tennessee wrestling. I'm talking about the pride of Memphis, Tennessee, Jerry the King Lawler. Lawler would recruit the Stomper into his King's Army to be one of his hired henchmen to go after men like Jackie Fargo and Rocky Johnson. Lawler getting the glory where the Stomper was doing all the work. And it didn't take long before these two men butted heads. Let's go back now and take a look at the relationship and the split between the Mongolian Stomper and Jerry the King Lawler.
Here comes Tommy Rich to chase him off. But the Stomper took his boot. From behind, he knocks Tommy Rich flat down on the floor. He then slams his head into that helmet of Lawler's. The Mongolian Stomper back up to the edge of the ring, and the Stomper going after Rocky Johnson. Right at ring's edge, as referee Tommy Sloan, who was knocked down when the Stomper threw Johnson into him, is now coming back to his feet and getting back into the action. Somewhat worse for that wear. Woo, and Johnson took the Stomper right up and over, and that's not easy to do with a guy that big. Tommy Rich laid out on the floor over here in the corner. Rocky Johnson going after the Stomper. Here comes Lawler. Johnson puts him down. Woo! And Lawler hit him with that helmet, knocking him flat in the floor. But it'll be a disqualification in 9 minutes and 12 seconds. And while the Stomper holds him, Lawler slams him with that riding crop. And now the Stomper, Rocky duck, and nailed. He was absent. He disappeared from the corner, and there's a tag on Fargo. Once again, the Stomper goes down. Stomper wails him. Lawler telling him, you stay in there and get him, you get him. Once again, a tag on Johnson. The fast footwork, a hard right. The cocoa butt. The Stomper comes to the corner to tag Lawler. Lawler refuses again and sends Stomper back at it. Tommy Sloan knocked down, and a Stomper, who has never been known to be a gentleman, brings Lawler in. He counts him out himself. Bobby Sloan saying, wait a minute, what happened? What happened? Johnson and Fargo heading to the outside, and the Stomper about ready to take Lawler's head off. Lawler refused his tag 3 times. And Lawler nails the Stomper from behind. Starts to work on him. Lawler pounds him. He's got a chain wrapped around his hand. Stomper coming after him. Buddy Diamond climbs on the rope in the corner, comes down on top of the Stomper. Goes over to help Lawler. I think probably it's got to be a disqualification, and referee Jerry Calhoun was going to raise his hand, but the Stomper threw him down. And now is working on Buddy Diamond in the corner. Lawler coming in after him behind. Nails the Stomper from behind. The referee bleeding where the Stomper got him. Buddy Diamond being pounded by the Stomper. Lawler knocked back out of the way. There goes referee Jerry Calhoun. Back out of it again, and Diamond and Lawler try to control the enraged Mongolian Stomper. Lawler pounding away at him. Here comes Rocky Johnson. Rocky Johnson. He nails Buddy Diamond. Lawler heads to the dressing room, leaving his private out here by himself. Buddy Diamond staggers his way, and Mongolian Stomper, in a rare display, grabbing Rocky Johnson.
There you saw just some of the wild action between the Mongolian Stomper and Jerry the King Lawler. Now we're going to jump in here real fast, take a break. When we come back, we're going to get up to the point in the career of the Mongolian Stomper where he made his second home, and I'm talking about right here in East Tennessee with Southeastern Championship Wrestling.
Hi everyone, it's your friend Misty James. I'm here to tell you it's never too early to protect your family with life insurance and have peace of mind for you and your loved ones. Funerals double in price every 10 years. Do you have the money or benefits needed? Your loved ones could be left with medical bills and other expenses. Protect them now. Call my friend Lance Dykes, independent agent in Tennessee and Virginia, who has common sense approach to life insurance with no pressure sales. He is someone who will listen to you and work for you. Affordable premiums that will never increase. No medical exam. No decrease in coverage, and the policy cannot be canceled as long as you pay your premium. Top insurance carriers. Call Lance today and protect your family.
Are you looking for classic Southern Wrestling DVDs from the days of promoter Nick Gulas, Southeastern Wrestling, or Continental Wrestling? How about DVDs from Southern States Wrestling featuring the legends of the ring and some of today's top stars? Maybe you are looking for the 3-disc set of Bill Dundee's career and memories, or the 2 published books by Beau James about his life in wrestling. Keep up with the careers and life away from the ring of the award-winning Dynamic Wrestling James duo. All of this and a lot more at kingofkingsport.com. That's kingofkingsport.com.
Welcome back to our tribute to the man known as the Mongolian Stomper, Archie Goldie. Now, before the Stomper got here to East Tennessee on New Year's Day 1977, he had had a couple of managers already in his career, in J.J. Dillon and Bearcat Wright. but he was brought to Southeastern Championship Wrestling by a man by the name of Don Carson. The Stomper debuted on New Year's Day 1977 in the annual two-ring battle royal. No one in this part of the country had seen a wrecking machine like the Stomper. He eliminated everyone in Ring 1, then climbed into Ring 2 and eliminated everyone in there to win the grand prize. Under the management of Don Carson, he would go on to win the Southeastern Heavyweight title and the Southeastern Television title trophy. The Stomper was a fighting champion. Under the Southeastern banner, he took on all comers. It didn't take long for the Stomper to find tough competition in a man known as the one-man gang. I'm talking about Ronnie Garvin. Not since the days of Ron Wright and Whitey Caldwell had this region seen a feud quite like the Stomper and Garvin. It seemed every time they climbed into the ring, they were not only trying to beat their opponent, they were trying to injure their opponent. The matches got so intense and so violent that Don Carson sold the contract of the Mongolian Stomper to Gorgeous George Jr. and left the area. The Stomper was able to come out on top in his feud against Ronnie Garvin, but standing in his way was another tough Canadian by the name of Joe LeDuc, the Canadian Lumberjack. Who can forget Gorgeous George Jr. busting the blocks on the Stomper's head on Southeastern television? And the next week when Joe LeDuc came out to take the challenge to say he was just as tough as the Stomper, only to be hospitalized for 2 weeks after the Stomper took the hammer to Joe LeDuc's head. With both men having stays in the hospital, countless stitches, bruises, injuries, this feud set the mark for intensity and physical brutality for wrestling in the southeastern United States. Once again, but Hooker Crook, the Stomper, was able to come out on top with his manager, Gorgeous George Jr. And it didn't take long for another man to step up and come after the Stomper, and the Tennessee stud, Ron Fuller. This feud lived up to the brutality of the two prior feuds of the Stomper when Ron Fuller took a shovel and hit the Stomper on top of the head, busting his eardrum. The Stomper had to wear ear protection for many months while he was in the ring. The Stomper was able to run Ron Fuller out of Southeastern Wrestling only to look up and see a new challenger, a masked man called the Tennessee Stud. There's very little footage that has survived from Southeastern Wrestling, but let's go back right now and take a look at some of the surviving moments as the Mongolian Stomper battles the masked Tennessee Stud. There you saw just some of the feud between the Tennessee Stud and the Mongolian Stomper with his manager Gorgeous George Jr. Now in the early part of 1979, the Stomper and Gorgeous George, they returned to Memphis for Jarrett Promotions, where the Stomper once again won the Southern Heavyweight title. The Stomper defended against all-comers like Bill Dundee, Jerry Lawler, Austin Idol, Tommy Gilbert, a man called Sterling Golden who would go on to become Hulk Hogan. After several months on the Memphis end, they would return back to Knoxville in late 1979, where the Stomper would become a fan favorite for the first time in this part of the country after splitting from his manager, Gorgeous George Jr. George Jr. would bring in some of the biggest, meanest men the wrestling profession had to offer, like Ox Baker, Alexis Smirnoff, and anyone else he thought could put the Stomper out of action, which led to the Stomper calling in one of his toughest opponents, the eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. After splitting from Gorgeous George Jr., the Stomper would bounce around for a few months before reuniting with Don Carson. And it didn't take long for Carson and the Stomper to be back up to their old tricks, winning titles and main eventing cards across the southeastern United States. When the Knoxville promotion moved their operations to the Gulf Coast, the Stomper and Don Carson went right behind. And it didn't take them long to win the Southeastern Heavyweight title once again. They would then turn their sights to Nationwide TV and Channel 17 out of Atlanta, WTBS, and the Stomper and Don Carson hit Atlanta like a whirlwind. Stomper winning the National Heavyweight title, defending his title against men like Andre the Giant, and others like Ted DiBiase, Robert Fuller, and he's seen here defending the title in Chattanooga against Mr. Wrestling No. 2. In early 1983, the Stomper and Don Carson found themselves entangled in a bitter feud with Dick Slater over the Southwest Heavyweight title in San Antonio, Texas. In the later part of that year, the Stomper returned home to Calgary's Stampede Wrestling, and he didn't come alone as he brought his son Jeff, who was breaking in as a professional wrestler. There seemed to be a new bully in Stampede Wrestling in Bad News Allen, and it wasn't long before the Stomper and Bad News crossed paths and had a falling out, resulting in the Stomper's son having a career-ending injury. Let's go to Calgary, December 1983, and take a look at the bitter feud between Archie the Stomper Goldie and Bad News Allen.
I don't have to remind the people out there what happened last Friday night in the Victoria Pavilion. Everybody saw my kid been carried out in a stretcher, taken away in the ambulance to the Holy Cross Hospital. I've had a whole week to think about it. I've sat with my kid hour after hour, promising that I'd get a hold of Bad News Allen. I'd tear me off some hide. But this week, the Calgary Boxing and Wrestling Commission, I don't know what happened to them. I guess they don't have the courage. They couldn't see me getting a hold of Bad News Allen in the city of Calgary. They suspended Stu Hart's license. I was there at the pavilion last night trying to get in myself. The doors were locked. There was 4,000 people out there in the freezing cold. So I got on the phone and I phoned the chief at the Sarcee Indian Reservation. I said, Chief, I want to rent your building. I want to rent it bad. Because I got a guy that I want to put in the ring and I want to get a hold of because he's going to pay for every minute my son is laying there with that cast around his neck. Chief said, fine, Archie. I'd love to have that match out here right on the reservation. So I rented the Sarcee 7 Chiefs Arena, a half-mile west of the city limits on Anderson Road. And I said, Chief, you're going to have to raise the prices here because this is not going to be cheap. Because Bad News Allen's hospital bill's going to be high. And he's going to have to make a lot of money to pay for that hospital bill. She said, whatever you want, Archie. So we're going to have raised prices at the Sarcee 7 Chiefs Arena. First come, first served. And for those 4,000 people that were down there tonight waiting in the freezing cold of Victoria Pavilion last night, come on out to Sarcee tonight. Because, people, I want to tell you something. This is serious business. This is in my family. That's my 19-year-old son that was hurt, and he was hurt bad. He's got a cracked collarbone. He's finished as a professional wrestler, and I'm his daddy. And I said, one other thing, Chief. I don't want any police out there. I don't want any guards out there. And I said, Chief, I'm going to put up a bond in case we wreck your building. He said, that's fine, Archie. And I'm putting up $5,000 on top of that, bad news, Ellen. 5,000 big ones. And I'm going to make you this promise, and I've never made this in 19 years as a professional wrestler. I'm coming out after your hide, boy. And I'm going to get your hide. And you're going to pay for what you've done to my son. And I'm telling you right now, you're going to pay, and it's going to be out there in the Indian reservation where we got lots of room. If we get out of that ring and break through them walls, there's about 500 acres of reservation out there, boy. And I'll rub your hide into that gravel road from one end of that reservation to the other. But I'm going to come out of there, and I might have to crawl back home. But if I do, I'll crawl back home, and I'll say, son, I took care of business tonight out in the Sarcee Indian Reservation, because they wouldn't allow this fight in the city of Calgary. It's too brutal. It's too brutal for the city of Calgary. But those Indians out there, they're good people. And they like fighting. They was brought up, they was raised up fighting like me. So tomorrow night, people, come on out there. The Sarcee 7 Chiefs Arena. First come, first served.
Hasn't got into the ring. The referee is Cedric Hathaway. Goldie's still trying to pull Bad News into the ring. And he succeeds. So, this match to a finish is, I guess, now officially underway because they're in the ring. I don't think we're going to see much wrestling. I think it'll be a little kicking, a little swinging, and now a little strangling maybe. Now, the Goldie is smoldering. He's smoldering now. I would imagine very shortly Archie and that right hand are now. Stomach kick. Another one, and Bad News Allen is down, as is Archie Goldie. But Bad News is slowed up for a little while. Now can Archie... Now there's a nice little shot in the ribs by Archie. Another one. Looks like a rally. The good guy's coming back. Now Archie is trying to throttle Bad News again. Wakamasu doesn't like this turnabout.
After the Stompers' feud with Bad News Allen in Calgary, it seemed that he just kind of bounced around for a year and a half until 1985 when he ended up back in a familiar area in Memphis, Tennessee, this time managed by Tom Ernesto Sr., where the Stomper would go on to beat Phil Hickerson for the International Heavyweight title. The Stomper would spend most of his time in Memphis on this go-round feuding with Hickerson over that title until leaving to go to the AWA in 1986. The Stomper's time in the AWA in 1986 and 1987 was his last go-around on national TV, his last go-around during his initial career as a national television star. Managed by Sheik Adnan El Casey, he often teamed with Nord the Barbarian and Boris Zukov. After the Stompers run the AWA, he returned to his second home, where he planned to live out his life right here in the hills of East Tennessee. In early 1988, the Stomper returned to the rings here in East Tennessee, now accompanied by a manager that he has known for many years in the one and only Ron Wright. Wright teamed him with Moondog Spot and surrounded themselves with a host of characters, as they battled men like Doug Furness and longtime foes The Bullet and the Tennessee Stud. The Stomper would hold the USA heavyweight title for most of 1988. Ron Wright and the Stomper were not through. In 1989, they formed a team with Jimmy Golden and went on to win the Continental Tag Team titles. Headlining cards across Eastern Tennessee and Eastern Kentucky. against teams like the Rock and Roll Express, Jim Cornette's Midnight Express, the Southern Boys. In November of 1989, the territory closed down, opening the doors to many independent groups opening up across what was once the southeastern and continental area. The Stomper's career did not slow down as he went to work for many of the top independent promotions in this part of the country. He also went to serve at the community that he loved in Knox County, going to work for the Knox County Sheriff's Department. When we opened up Southern States Wrestling in 1991, it was not long after that that Ron Wright suggested that we start booking the Mongolian Stomper and gave us the contact information to bring the man back to the Tri-Cities. In the early days of Southern States Wrestling, the Stomper was a big part of our promotion. Most of his time spent here, he feuded with a team of Mike Sampson and GQ Stratus known as the $1 Billion Babies. Let's take a moment and go back and look at the Mongolian Stomper in Southern States Wrestling. There you saw just some of the action from the Mongolian Stomper here in Southern States Wrestling. You know, I can get into this a lot more, but we don't have time here on this tribute. But you can check out kingofkingsport.com, as I'm going to have a very special blog on the Stomper there. My thoughts, my personal dealings with him, and what he meant to me and meant to my family. So make sure you check that out. At the same time that the Stomper was wrestling for Southern States Wrestling, he was also wrestling for Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling, which shined a new spotlight for a new generation to fans to find out about the Mongolian Stomper. Magazine coverage and syndicated TV brought the Stomper into people's homes that may have not been familiar with his career. They were just discovering what people here in East Tennessee and Western Canada had known for many years. The Stomper was the main attraction. He was a wild man in the ring, and he would do anything to win at any cost. His battles with Kevin Sullivan's Smoky Mountain Wrestling sent fear through the fans as they fought all over the buildings everywhere that they faced each other. In 1994, the Stomper was inducted into the Knoxville Wrestling Hall of Fame, where he rightfully belonged as being one of the top draws in the history of this profession in this part of the country. In August of 1995, Smoky Mountain Wrestling presented the Super Bowl of Wrestling. Some of the top stars of the day were headlining this card, but who was right there with them? That's right, the Mongolian Stomper, still in action. 20 years after he came to East Tennessee, the Stomper was still an attraction, still drawing crowds, and still showing he's just as tough as he ever was. The Stomper would go on to wrestle for many independent organizations until the late 90s, when he retired full-time from the ring. Just a few years later, he retired from Knox County Sheriff's Department. The Stomper lived out the rest of his life right here in East Tennessee, in the Smoky Mountains and the Appalachians, where he loved. He fell in love with the area when he first came here in 1977, and he never wanted to leave. He made it home. He became an East Tennessean. The Stomper, without a doubt, only behind Ron Wright, was the second biggest drawing bad guy in the history of East Tennessee wrestling. His name deserves to be brought up with Ron Wright and Whitey Caldwell and all the greats of their era anytime the history of professional wrestling in East Tennessee is brought up. Even though he was someone we went to the matches to cheer against, this man was a hero. He was truly a legend, and I don't like using that word loosely. This man was a legend. His matches are still talked about. The man outside of the ring is still talked about, and will forever be talked about from the people that he touched, just like me, in his lifetime. And I know with his passing, just like Ron Wright, part of many of our childhoods is gone. This is a man that meant Saturdays in front of the TV. It meant either Friday night in Knoxville or Tuesday night in Johnson City or Monday in East Kentucky at the wrestling matches to see the Stomper. To us that personally knew him, he is going to leave a hole that will never be filled. We can talk about the monster of the Mongolian Stomper or the meanness of Archie the Stomper Goldie. And we can go on for hours and hours probably. But we can go on even longer about what a great man he was. How he was truly a gentle giant. How he was there to help others in this profession, like me. He always had advice. He always was there to help you. And he was always there to fight for the profession that he loved, professional wrestling. If you knew the man, I hope this helps comfort you, knowing that his legend is going to live on forever and ever. I hope you've enjoyed looking at the career of Archie the Mongolian Stomper Goldie. I hope it's brought back some memories for you. I would like to say to you, Archie Goldie, thank you. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for the advice. Thank you for the time. Thank you for all that you gave to this profession that we love. And we leave you with the greatest tribute that we can give you. 10 bells for the Mongolian Stomper. God bless you, sir.